morning, everyone. It is a privilege for me to be here with all of you all today, along with Ms. Bruce and all the Bruce family to celebrate the completion and official opening of our beautiful state-of-the-art facility, Carl B. Bruce Middle School. I am Stacy Chapman, the first principal of this new building located in one of the most historical areas in Kansas City, Kansas. Before Carl B. Bruce, my first position as a principal was at Quindurl Elementary School. I learned so much during my 6 years as an instructional leader and a principal. I know we are here to honor Mr. Bruce and to celebrate the official opening of this school that bears his name, but I wanted you to know who I am and to give you some background information on how did I arrive here. I had lots of conversation with Dr. Donnie Mitchell, we call him Doc, and he encouraged me a great deal. So to succeed him, it was a great honor, but it was a great push in the same breath. Currently on the state low performance watch list, Quindurl Elementary School has similar challenges. Like many of the low performing schools identified as TSI and CS schools. So when I took the position as principal here, I inherited many challenges and many positive situations. And Dr. Charles Faust came on board and asked me to share with him, how would I move a low-performing school? I shared with him that this is one of the most challenging schools to work in and that I was having issues with a lot of the staff turnover, which is current for our situation here as well. When I reflect on my childhood, I didn't come from parents who were educated. My mother was a sickly child who grew up with asthma and spent most of her time in the hospital and only had an 8th grade education. I grew up around alcohol and drugs, and my adverse childhood experiences were high. My trauma was high as a child, but I managed to get through it. So I understand the challenges that our students face in their daily lives because I was one of those students. I shared my similar stories with my teachers and support staff and kept encouraging them that if you could make it in Quindurl, you can make it anywhere. Although Quindurl is geographically located in one of the country's most economically deprived areas, I wasn't going to allow my parents and students' socioeconomic challenges to be a barrier to providing the best school environment for students to succeed academically. Today, Quindurl is one of the schools that is progressing towards improved classification and will drop off the list of low-performing schools if progress is maintained or increased this school year. So why do I share this story? Because my goal is to put systems in place to help establish the same academic environment and standards as this new school, which bears the name of a man who has exhibited all the qualities of a true leader, that with growing with respect and honor to this day, Mr. Carl B. Bruce. Like the late Mr. Carl Bruce, I too will come to work every day, giving it everything that I got and walking with my shoulders up, trying to be a role model for these students. And I invite the community to join me in those efforts. Before we get started with our program, I would like to introduce a few of our guests who have joined us on this special occasion. Please join me in welcoming members of our Board of Education. The president of our school board this year, Mr. Randy Lopez. The vice president this year, Mrs. Wanda Brownlee Page. A couple school board members that could not be with us, Ms. Yolanda Clark, Ms. Maxine Drew, Ms. Janie Humphreys, Dr. Valenia Wynn, she's not with us today, and also, last but not least, Dr. Stacy Yeager. We would also like to thank Senator Pat Petty, Janet Y., representing our district as a member of the Kansas State Board of Education, who does lots of work for Kansas City, Kansas Public School District on our behalf, so we appreciate you. United Government Commissioners, Melissa Bynum and Christian Ramirez. United Government Assistant County Administrators Gordon Cresswell and Emmerich Cross. Our NEA KCK President, Mr. Dominic DeRusso. And Daniel Silva, President and CEO of the Kansas City, Kansas Chamber of Commerce. As we make this official transition into our new school today, we would be remiss if we didn't take a moment to acknowledge the generations of students, their families, and teachers who passed through the classrooms and the hallways of Northwest Middle School, which served as an essential anchor to the proud families in the community for decades. The memories of the positive student relationships that were established at Northwest Middle were fundamental to the students' success and will never be forgotten. I was a Northwest student, so I'm proud to say that. Came through these ranks, and I'm still standing here, and that's my message to the students. And so today I'm gonna have you all look at the program. We're gonna follow the program in the order. Again, my name is Stacy Chapman. I'll be the first principal here. We'll start with Ms. Monica Portley. She's a former student and has the past and the legacy, and she'll join us. After that, we'll continue on with the program with Mr. Timothy Robinson. Then we will get to hear from Ms. Ruby Bruce, who was also my school nurse at Wyandotte High School when she was still working, so I'm proud of that. Then we'll hear from my classmate, Mr. Mark Dupree. I'll hear from Mr. Harold Johnson in the event that he doesn't make it. I will speak on his behalf. And then we'll hear from our great board president who's working really hard to move KCK public school districts. And then last but not least, my superintendent, Dr. Alicia Miguel. Thank you.
Greetings, Interim Superintendent Dr. Alicia Miguel, board members, president of the board, to our board members, family, and guests. My name is Monica Portley. I'm a former student as well as a former employee of Northwest Middle School. It was in 2009 I joined what I deemed the greatest middle school throughout KCK, Northwest Middle School. It is here where I met, developed, and worked with many of our distinguished guests that are here today. Thank you. In August of this year, I concluded my career with KCK as the first and only Family Community Engagement Specialist to serve at Northwest Middle School. I am indeed honored to share the historical highlights of Northwest Middle School and how we arrived to our current destination of celebrating the opening of this amazing school, Carl B. Bruce Middle School. So please bear with me as I work to wrap 97 years of history in just a few pages. Northwest Junior High School was organized in the old Wyandotte High School building at 9th and State Avenue in September of 1923 and remained in that building until May 1st, 1924, when the school relocated to the new building on 18th and Haskell Avenue. Mr. A.W. Allen was the first principal of Northwest in 1924, and during his time there were 29 teachers and 29 classrooms. From 1928 to 1982, there were many upgrades, additions, boundary changes, and community rescue efforts at Northwest. Northwest has always been a place of refuge for our kids and our community. In particular, the flood of 1951, Northwest Junior High School offered and opened our facilities to the General Motors Buick Oldsmobile plant, the Pontiac plant, and there they installed their temporary offices, an engineering unit, a personnel unit, and inoculation unit. In 1982, ninth grade students were then transferred to senior high school, and Northwest Junior High became Northwest Middle School, serving students 6th through 8th grade. Northwest has been privileged to be led by several principals. As mentioned prior, the late A.W. Allen was the first principal, serving from 1924 to 1956. The late G.W. Corpa served from 1957 to 1964. 1964 to 1969 was led by the late William J. McIntyre. From 1969 to 1987, the late Carl B. Bruce. The late Leslie L. Brown led Northwest from 1987 to 1994. From 1994 to 1997, that's my principal, Mr. Doug Bowden led Northwest Middle School. We have just a few more. 1997 to 1999, the late Rochier Daniels. 1999 to 2002, Mr. Al Hunt. It was in 2003 to 2006, the only lady that led Northwest was none other than Mrs. Lori Boyd. For 2 years, Mr. Earl Williams from 2006 to 2008 led Northwest. And our final principal of Northwest is none other than my principal that I served under, Dr. Carnes Donnie Mitchell, serving from 2008 to 2020. It was during his tenure, Northwest went from its lowest population of 240 students in 2008 to well over 900 plus students in 2020. In 2013, Northwest hosted our 90th year festivities. We had a balloon release, which is depicted, if you get a chance to walk through it, is depicted in the history wall of Carby Bruce. During that time, our staff grew. It was well over 67 staff members, and our population stood at 730 students, making us the largest middle school in KCK. Our community surrounded us in unprecedented ways. During the years, we were sponsored by several local businesses, community and faith-based organizations, and we were provided resources and support to encourage our staff and our students. During this time, it was not uncommon for you to hear us chant, "Northwest, middle is the place you want to be." Academically, we focused on literacy and critical thinking skills as we fulfilled and prepared under our, at the time, Dr. Cynthia Lane, our superintendent, and our board's vision to be college and career ready. In 2014, we made AYP. We were removed from school improvement and received the Silver Banner of Distinction Award for outstanding growth in reading. As Northwest continued to rise, we developed and produced scholar athletes that were responsible for 6 undefeated wrestling seasons, 3 undefeated seasons and 5 league titles in football, 1 undefeated season in girls soccer, 4 undefeated seasons in boys basketball, 1 undefeated season in boys soccer, 3 top seasons in cross country, 2 undefeated girls basketball seasons, and 3 league titles. In September of 2016, Northwest turned 93 years old. It was evident that our building was holding on by a thread. Dr. Nevels, she was one of our direct supporters, and many of you can attest that in the final days, Northwest needed much more than a renovation project. It was the same year that the zero tax increase bond was on the November ballot. Dr. Lane, Kirk Horn, Randy Lopez, Janie Humphreys, Cindy Cash, Elaine Warren, Patty Greenbaum, James and Mary Moore, Craig Gaffney, John Rios, Dr. Kelly Mather, myself, Monica Portley, Crystal Watson, Rick Nobles, James White, and the reason we come together today, Mr. Carby Bruce served on the Vote Yes Community Committee. That's where I had the honor of meeting the distinguished Carl Barton Bruce. During this time, I learned that he was an amazing singer. I also learned that he was the vice principal of Northwest before he became the principal in 1969, where he served until 1987, after which he was transferred to F.O. Schlegel High School and served there until 1990. Prior to retiring, Mr. Bruce was the superintendent in pupil and student services until 1995, which we know today as student services. As we celebrate the opening of Carby Bruce Middle School, we honor the invaluable history and the foundation of Northwest Middle School, where Mr. Bruce served as the second longest reigning principal, a positive district influence, and a community supporter. In a time that we are yet reminding the world that Black lives still matter and the importance of retaining African American and Hispanic men in education, I am beyond privileged to share this monumental occasion as we honor the work, the influence, and commendable impact Mr. Carl Barton Bruce shared at Northwest, F.L. Schlegel, KCKPS, and Wyandotte County at large. Thank you for being here today as we celebrate 97 years of rich history, as well as salute the continued success to Mrs. Stacy Chapman and our Black and Yellow Tigers. Once a Tiger, always a Tiger. Best wishes as the Tigers continue to roar at Carby Bruce Middle School.
We just gonna do our Northwest song. In the heart of the nation, by the hills and the cities, all around the globe right now, Santa Fe is tall and strong. From 1920
To the Carl B. Bruce family and friends, Ms. Stacy Chapman and the administration team of Carl B. Bruce Middle School, the Kansas City, Kansas Public School, along with the board, every esteemed guest, last but not least, the present and former staff and students of Northwest. Let me first just say on this cold and drizzling morning, but beautiful day, thank you. Thank you for coming and taking the time to help us celebrate the legacy of a great man, Mr. Carl B. Bruce. As we are embarking upon the dawning of a brand new day, we remember and honor the work of this giant of our community. In my formative years, I had the pleasure of having Mr. Bruce as my principal at Northwest Junior High School. Mr. Bruce deposited into us a heap of attributes that are still inherent throughout this community today, exemplifying rare leadership qualities such as discipline, courage, and resilience with love and understanding. Mr. Bruce was able to create a fabric of family, purpose, and self-worth within the school culture. His support for his staff and students were second to none. The ability to balance grace and accountability, promoting a distinctive life for those that were impacted by him. I stand today on the grounds of this newly erected facility that is serving as a patrimony of respect and responsibility. The charge for hard work, love for humanity, and that push to focus on your dreams serves as a mnemonic for this distinguished leader. On a side note, Mr. Bruce was like a father figure to many of us. Even though I had a father in the home, I soon realized it's the principal and his staff that spend more time with us, generating a greater impact. The power to imprison us and set us free lies within the hands of our surrogate parents. Thank you for taking care of us. Thank you, Mr. Bruce, for all that you have done for this community. You have planted seeds that are ready to be harvested. You have given us assignments that are now overdue. You have challenged us to activate prior knowledge by remembering our ancestries and history. You have helped us make the connection from the past to the present. And as we move from the beginning stages of learning, where strategies and cues were available to help the youth of our community identify what is important in life and what should matter most. Plans that were not polished but efficient for the hour. Mr. Bruce, we sit on your shoulders when Principal Leslie Brown and Rotier Daniels moved us to a developing stage where our plans were to check for understanding and to make sure the students knew that someone was listening and admin was approachable. Mr. Bruce, we continue to stand on your shoulders as Principal Al Hunt, Lori Bohr, Earl Williams meandered the school body to the appliance stages. Not only did we monitor the progression of learning through Kagan strategies and First Thing First initiatives, but we wanted to make sure no child was left behind. So, Mr. Carl Bruce, we are still standing on your shoulders. As Principal Dr. Donnie Mitchell, Dr. Alan King, and Dr. Eva Tucker, and soon to be Dr. Stacy Chapman, entrust us into the innovative stages of this great work. We are so glad that the tools provided to the next generation has equipped us for a successful journey. We are the largest multicultural middle school in Kansas City, Kansas, by population as well as square feet. We represent your depth and broad reach to our community. With over so many thousands of square feet of learning, through science and social studies, math and reading, ESOL classes, your impact is sure to be felt. Through the arts, music, physical education, creative writing, the land will know who Carl B. Bruce was. Through meals, sports, and clubs, and counseling, college readiness programs, with the exceptional wing that appears to be extracted out of the Better Home and Garden magazine, the love for all students you had will mimic. Wanda Page, the light in the community, just got brighter. Aunt Maxine Drew, the winds are blowing harder. And the finish line, Miss Janie, is within reach. So Randy, in closing, Mr. Bruce, your commitment to this community will stand the test of time. I pray that 35 years from now, on my retirement date, I I would love to come to a new podium and smile and say in the words of McFadden and Whitehead, there's been so many things that have held us down, but now it looks like things are finally coming around. I know we got a long, long way to go, and where we end up, I don't know, but we won't let nothing hold us back. We're putting ourselves together. We're polishing up our act. If you felt we've been held down before, I know you refuse to be held down anymore. Don't let nothing stand in your way, because ain't no stopping us now. Great job, Mr. Bruce, from your former student, Mr. Tim Robinson.
He make us not want to speak next. But I appreciate that. We're going to continue to move on with the program. Now we will have Miss Ruby Bruce, the widower, and the proud person who also possesses the name, her last name on this school as well. So let's honor her and welcome her here. And she was my school nurse, and she looked at me and she said, I remember that little face.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to all of you, the dignitaries, friends, family. I appreciate your being here in memory of Carl Bruce. Today is a special and wonderful day, a day long awaited by the entire Bruce family. We are very proud, yet very humble. It is the highest honor that the name, the Carl B. Bruce Middle School, will go down in history, in the history of Kansas City, Kansas, USD 500. There's been a great deal of excitement. There's been a lot of anticipation of this special day. I had the pleasure of coming here last week and touring the school, touring this awe-inspiring school with your principal. As we walked throughout the building, I was amazed by what I saw. There were spacious, colorful hallways, beautiful architectural impacts in many of the rooms and buildings, restrooms conveniently located close to classrooms, and names and identifications of areas in several different languages to encompass the diversity of the student body. The picture that I had in my head of what a school looked like inside and out was soon lost, and I embraced the new picture I saw at that time. If Carl Bruce could see and hear what's going on now, he would be so proud, and he would give a rousing vote of confidence and a vote of approval. There has been so much said today that you've said much of what I was going to say. Yeah. But I must say that Carl Bruce, like this school, was a unique individual, very colorful, very expressive. He had a sweet, sweet personality and a very sweet spirit, as many of you already know. His personality was so vibrant and so complex that if you met him, even though he was only 5 feet 7 inches tall, you left him feeling as if he were a giant. Oh, boy. He worked tirelessly on any committee that he served on. At one point, he was a member of at least 50 organizations. And I wondered why he was ever on the American Lung Society. But included in some of those organizations was Kiwanis. He always took part. He always made his voice known and felt. And he always showed interest, great interest in students. The Carl B. Bruce Middle School, like the man, is a beacon that calls to all students. Come and learn and grow and achieve and discover who you are and what you can be.
Come on, let's give her another round of applause. Amazing. Amazing. I will move swiftly. I'm Mark Dupree, District Attorney of Wyandotte County, and I am just ecstatic to be able to speak. I was told on my way in that they understand that I am a preacher and that they will turn off the microphone on me. And so let me speak. I have my phone. I will pretend as though I'm looking at notes. I'm really looking at my timer. It is an honor and a privilege to stand here because not only was I a huge fan of Carl B. Bruce, but I was and am a huge fan of Northwest Middle School. My church, my father was a pastor, and we had a church right over the hill. Principal Chapman, thank you for this honor. And it was at 1531 Waverly. And literally, it's right over the hill across the way there. And I remember in the 80s, when we were growing up and going to school, some of the activities that were happening right over around in here. But it was always a safe haven and a safe place to go over there to Northwest Middle School because you had people who cared, people who did not care about what was happening and what was going on, but cared about the students. And that is the legacy that Carl B. Bruce continued to push right down here on 18th Street. Now, here's the catch. Everyone talks about how he was very sweet and very kind. But I want to talk just for a second, if you will allow me, about that giant part of him. Because he was sweet and he was kind, but he was bold. And with his boldness, he let you know as a student and as a young person, and specifically as an African-American young man, he let me know that there was an expectation of excellence that you will achieve, that there was an expectation of brilliance that you will go after. And he made that known throughout the school and throughout the community while he was here. And once he was retired, I recall when I won my first election as district attorney, he sat me down and he said, "Here's what I want you to do." I said, "Well, hold on now. You can't just tell me." And I set my small self down to his big, bold self. And he said, "There is too many young people who's coming into your system." I said, "Now, hold on, Mr. Bruce, it ain't my system." He said, "Well, you the DA now, it is your system." He said, "What are you going to do to fix it?" And he began to tell me what I was going to do. Does this sound like Carl B. Bruce that you know? And he said, "You need to collaborate more with the schools." I said, "Okay, I can." He said, "No, let me tell you what you need to do. You need to go into the schools and you need to talk to them and you need to make sure that they understand that you need to be involved so that they don't have to come into the criminal justice system." I said, "I understand what you're saying." He said, "No, you go to them so they won't come to you." And it was because of that speech that I continued to push and call and tug on Dr. Mitchell before he left and said, "Hey man, what can I do? How can I get involved?" And our office began to collaborate more with Northwest Middle School and all of the different schools in District 500 because Carl B. Bruce had a mentality of being confident, of being bold and being brilliant and having an expectation that every student in Wyandotte County should have that same expectation. expectation. And so as I close on the completion of my 2 minutes, I will say to the staff here, and I will say to the principal, and I will say to all of you who will be in this building, continue to push that legacy. Continue to push our students to be bold. Continue to push our students to be brilliant. Continue to push our students to be confident in knowing that they are excellent in the eyesight of the legacy that they now walk in, but of course in the eyesight of all of you. God bless you and thank you.
Is Harold Johnson here yet? Not yet, but I do have great news. So I had the privilege of representing the district with Mr. D.A. Dupree last week, and I had the opportunity to speak up on behalf of our school district and talk about Carl B. Bruce and who he was and the great man and the qualities that he possessed. And I'm going to go back and talk about what I said to Ms. Bruce. I need Carl Bruce to be more than a plaque on a wall. So for me, what that means is to walk and to be bold in it and to look at our students and stare them down and understand that the man that bears this name, this building that bears his name, is more than a human being. So we have to reflect on his spirit. We have to walk in it. We have to be in it. We have to be role models in it. And so when I talked to Ms. Bruce, I told her, I said, I love the building. I love everything that we've done, and I appreciate everybody. I said, but I need more than his plaque on the wall. So some of those traits that you all will see out there, I need the kids to see that and understand that. And when someone walks up to them, I need them to understand who was Carl B. Bruce. Because it's easy to put a name on the building, but if a kid doesn't know who they really are, it doesn't make sense. So I had that privilege with D.A. Dupree last week, and I had to send a shout out to my superintendent, and I just told him the honest to goodness truth. We are low performing right now. But I had the staff tell their story and say, what would you say about our school in 3 to 5 years? See, we have to change our narrative. We have to change our reputation. We have to brand Carl B. Bruce. So my goal is for everybody else to want to know what we're doing on the northeast end of town. Not the opposite way around, but what are we doing on the northeast end of town? And that's my goal. So I'm going to let Mr. Randy Lopez and then Dr. Alicia Miguel conclude, and then I will be closing with remarks. Thank you.
Good morning. I think the ushers will be coming around soon with the collection basket. I've been to church this morning. I love it. We need some more new schools, so where are the baskets going around? Good morning, everybody. My name is Randy Lopez. I am the president of the Board of Education of this great district, and proud to be here this morning, and proud to see all of you here with us this morning to celebrate this amazing day. On behalf of the school board, I want to welcome you and say that we're honored to not only celebrate the opening of one of the district's newest assets, but also to officially dedicate this building after one of our community's most prominent, respected, and loved educational leaders, Mr. Carl B. Bruce. We've heard some amazing things about him already this morning, and I'll just share a few other remarks. When we think about educational leadership, it can mean different things for different people. But one thing that comes to mind for me after hearing Ms. Bruce and others talk about Mr. Bruce is that a good educational leader is someone who creates a high-impact learning culture that inspires and empowers students and their parents and teachers alike. When we reflect on the era and time that Mr. Bruce grew up, African American teachers played a significant role during the years of school segregation and the transition into the integration of schools. They played a significant role in helping to break down those barriers that impeded equitable and equal access to quality education for African Americans and people of color. There are stories that have been shared about how white students were learning one thing about race in their home, but then saw and experienced something totally different when interacting with African American teachers. The presence and influence of male and female educators of color like Carl B. Bruce are still invaluable today. I want to acknowledge that we have made some gains since then, but we all know and understand that there still remain these disparities, and more work needs to be done to attract more teachers of color and to provide that equitable access to that quality education we all deserve. The presence of all of you this morning is an example of the power and influence of what being a mirror for Black and brown students in the classroom looks like. If it weren't for this current health pandemic, I'm confident that we wouldn't be able to hold the amount of people who would want to be present here this morning to show their respect and appreciation for a man whose name will forever be visibly and verbally associated with this new state-of-the-art campus. The naming of this school after Carl B. Bruce, I hope, will continue to evoke the kind of passion for our students, which he described as our most important asset throughout our entire community. When our students return to in-person classes in January of 2021, hopefully, everyone wear your masks, they will enter a brand new school environment that encourages discovery, promotes responsibility, fosters relationships, and teachers who inspire lifelong learning and a climate that embraces and celebrates diversity. This is a beautiful facility, and I want to take a quick moment to thank the individuals who helped contribute to the construction of Carl B. Bruce, our 4 other new schools, and also the facility upgrades and security enhancements in 47 buildings across the district. I want to thank Hollis and Miller Architects, who were responsible for the construction work and renovations of our high schools and middle schools. Also, their design consultant teams included Smith and Butcher as the MEP engineers and MKEC engineers, who are all present here with us today. We also held ribbon cuttings this year for 2 of our elementary schools, West Park and Lowell Bruni Elementary Schools. HTK Architects, Inc. was the architect for the construction and renovation of the elementary schools, along with their design consultants, PKMR and MEP engineers and MKEC engineer. And we want to thank J.E. Dunn Construction for their construction management and expertise. A debt of gratitude certainly applies to former Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Cynthia Lane, who is with us today, and Dr. Kelly Mather. You played an integral role in the bond work of the schools completed. Both the former and current members of the Board of Education for your sound financial and fiscal management of the district's resources, which raise the quality of schooling that all Kansas City, Kansas public school students deserve, and most importantly, well, let's give them a round of applause as well. Thank you. But most importantly, all of you are voters of Kansas City, Kansas, who approved that $235 million bond referendum back in 2016. I want to thank Lenora Miller and Doug Clements and Kurt Wagner and the operations team for helping to manage this entire process on the district's behalf, and most importantly, a great deal of gratitude to our custodial staff who continue to keep our buildings clean and school campuses clean and safe, especially during these times of the pandemic. Again, I want to thank the school board for your sound financial prudence and for approving the refinancing of $150 million of the district's $235 million general obligation bond, which saved the district more than $30 million, and including Mr. Dennis Covington for helping to guide us through that. And I think, I just want to quickly acknowledge, I think I saw Commissioner Mike Kane here with us today as well, so I just want to make sure to give him a shout out, Mr. Commissioner. Lastly, I know Monica mentioned them, but I also want to thank our community visioning team. That included members of our community who helped to ensure that the message was clear and that there was community voice within the process. Monica mentioned those that were members of that team. I just want to acknowledge one of those members who's here with us this morning, Mr. James White. Mr. James White served alongside Mr. Bruce in various leadership positions throughout the district for a long time, and both of them worked so hard on this bond that was passed. James served as our treasurer, and both men dedicated their time, their heart, and life for our students, even attending football games with Dr. Cynthia Lane to make sure that this bond was passed. So I know, Mr. White, you and Mr. Bruce were really great friends, and it's an honor to have you here with us to remember and honor your longtime friend, Mr. Bruce, and his family. So thank you. Again, I just want to say thank you to all of you for being here with us today. It's such an honor and a joy to see this beautiful building and the life of Mr. Bruce celebrated through all of you and through all of our students, and the quality education that they will receive through this school and through their leaders. So thank you, Ms. Bruce. Thank you to your family, and we honor and love Mr. Bruce and his legacy that he leaves with us. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This is so emotional. I mean, just to hear all of you talk about Mr. Carl Bruce that I did not have the pleasure to meet or to know personally. It's humbling to hear everything he stood for, everything he did. I love the idea of the past and the present coming together to forge a very bright future for our students. So let me adjust this. I've been told I look a lot taller on TV than I am in person, so I'm gonna, Edwin, we have to do TV from now on. So let me adjust this. So everybody has said so much. There is really not much I can add. I just want to remark how this is just an example of how Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools is grateful for the community we are in, how Wyandotte County comes together when it's about students, and how we really focus on the future of our students. There is such a commitment to family, friends. We want to thank everyone who was involved in this initiative to make this building real, and it's just one of several. So we do agree that schools bring a lot of value to neighborhoods and bring partnerships, and our interest is to support students, just like Mr. Chadmon said. That is what we are for. I love to hear the story of Mr. Bruce telling Mr. Dupree what to do. And I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I totally agree, so I'm going to remind you of his words. And it sounds like he made such an impression. I will just have to say, hey, Mark, remember what he said? And we'll come together, because our goal is also to prevent kids from getting in trouble. And the way we're going to do it, I love how Ms. Chadmon talked about, we have to do better. We have to make sure that we improve what we do for students so that they are truly prepared to be out there in the world. That is what we are about. That's why we're here together. And we have this amazing facility. And what we don't have, what we wish we could have here today with us, is our kids. And that's what this is for. That is what the Bruce family is about. I love the idea of all of these former students coming back. I always think we must have done something right when our own students come back to lead now. So that is just an amazing experience. I am so humbled by the presence of these giants that came before me. I can only hope that I can continue the work. We don't have Mr. Bruce here with us today, but his spirit is here, his family is here. Those of you who worked with him and can share the ideas and the passion that he had. So I do appreciate that, and I really hope I can continue some of the work. We know we are living in difficult times, and we know COVID has prevented our kids from being here. I want to thank the Board of Education for a very hard decision that they made. We know that we would want to have the kids here, but we also know that we have always been about the safety of our students first. And part of forging that future that Ms. Chapman was talking about was making sure that we keep them safe. So it was a hard decision, but the right decision to make. And we're following the guidelines of the health department. We look at it carefully. One thing, every time I get in front of a crowd, I try to say, it's going to take all of us to bring our kids back. I love how every single person here is wearing a mask. That's what we have to do. So when January comes around, we can truly open our doors and have the kids back. It would be very sad if we had to say the numbers are still high, the spread is still very high, we cannot bring them back. So please, everyone in the community, that's what we need, that we wear our masks, we keep social distance. So I know we are dying to go into the building and visit this gorgeous facility, but I do want to say thank you before we start that tour to the Bruce family, the entire Bruce family, and Ms. Bruce especially, for being here today and for allowing us to share this moment with you. I want to recognize some very special guests that are here today. Former Assistant Superintendent Alan King. Thank you so much for coming. Dr. Eva Tucker-Nevels, former Instructional Improvement Officer, and someone I'm proud to call a friend and a mentor. Thank you so much for being here. The former principal of Northwest Middle, Dr. Donnie Mitchell. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming back to celebrate with us. Dr. Lane, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your mentorship, for your wisdom, and for making this possible. You and Dr. Mather worked so hard to make this a reality, and thank you to the board also for making this happen. So thank you for being here. So we know it's a beautiful school. We're going to see more of it in a few minutes, and we know that although the building is gorgeous, what we're going to have inside this building is what's really important, and that's our students. So I appreciate that we all come together to support our students, to help our parents, and to make sure that what we have heard about these giants before us becomes a reality, that many years ahead we have more former students who come back successful and to support other students. So without further ado, let's go visit this building. And Ms. Chapman, I know you're going to close first. Thank you so much.
Mr. Harold Johnson, our commissioner, was able to join us after all.
Sometimes you wake up after you turn 40 and your body gives you different directives than you had in the past. And so I had to have a conversation with my body to make sure I got here today. I didn't want to miss this, even if I was late. So thank you for this opportunity to say a few words, and I give deference to Mr. Randy Lopez and to all the members of the Board of Education, to Superintendent Miguel, and to Principal Stacy Chapman. Today is a great day, isn't it? I also want to appreciate all of our distinguished guests. Many of you will recall that not so many years ago, the Northwest Middle School was threatened to be closed. And the tide changed. And I appreciate Dr. Donnie Mitchell here because he worked hard to go out and change the tide. And now Northwest Middle School is no longer with us, but we have now the Carl B. Bruce Middle School. It's bursting in the seams in terms of the number of students, from what I understand, and it holds a little bit more than what it currently holds. But I'm so glad that the USD 500 has invested in Northeast Kansas City, Kansas. Thank you all so much. This beautiful facility is proof of that, and I'm not so naive as to believe that a new facility will change and improve test scores. That responsibility lies with the people. In other words, it lies with the teachers, the administrators, the support services, and most importantly, it lies with the parents. I do believe that our children, however, deserve the same conveniences that other children receive in other areas of our community. And this facility is proof of that. To Principal Stacy Chapman, I want to thank you for being a guest on my town hall last week. You did an awesome job, and if you if you didn't watch it, you can go out to the UG channel and watch it. She gave a great presentation in 5 minutes of this entire facility. You are a product of Northeast KCK, as you said on our town hall. And as a proud product of Northeast Kansas City, Kansas, you are living proof that great people are produced in Northeast Wyandotte County. I have no doubt that you will replicate the essence of who you are within the children of Carl B. Bruce Middle School. And furthermore, I don't think it's too far of a stretch to imagine that this school could be one of the leading schools in terms of test scores and achievement in USD 500. Sometimes you have to speak those things, amen. I ought to get an amen on that one. So again, thank you. I apologize for being late, but thank you for allowing me to have this space to say a few words. I'm honored to serve as the commissioner of the 4th District. I see Mr. Kane. Good to see you this morning, Mr. Kane, of the 4th District. I'm proud to be a commissioner of the Carl B. Bruce Middle School, the students and the faculties that it serves. Go Wildcats. God bless you. That was just a great close. That was a great close. And I said Wildcats. Y'all say it with me, go Tigers. Gotcha, all right.
I think he was thinking about Quindurl, because I was Quindurl Wildcats. Randy kind of stole my thunder because I was supposed to thank all the architectures and everything, so I do appreciate you all, but more importantly, I have to thank Daniel. Daniel and I had a great relationship when we were able to come in the building, and he chatted with me every day about what was going on, so I do appreciate you, and I have to send a special shout out to you for that, because he made sure everything is right in this building. I have to thank the man that has put all 3 of these together, Mr. Edwin Birch. Edwin has been instrumental to me, and he and I have been mentoring each other along the way in this process, so I do appreciate you for that. I have to thank the ladies who were putting this together here. Miss Althea Wallace, she doesn't like the recognition, but I'm going to point her out anyway. Miss Sheila Jones. Dr. Mitchell left her to me, so thank God for that, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know till you get from elementary to middle school, and you get introduced and baptized by fire. She's been my fire, and I appreciate that. Ribbon cutting ceremonies like this provide opportunities for us to reflect on the collective efforts of so many people and organizations it took for us to reach this point. As we reflect on the past, we certainly recognize that we owe a significant debt of gratitude to many people who are mentioned here today, that worked so hard over the years to bring this new school and districts for 4 other new schools for the concept stage to this completion. And so we've heard from a number of dignitaries. We heard from people who really appreciated Carl B. Bruce had those opportunities. And today I stand here with not shoes to fill, but I say I'm going to fill my own shoes. I believe in laying my own legacy around, and I hope one day that, who knows what I'll be doing. I'm still pretty young, I think. But my principal, Mr. James White, had me as a child and spoke a lot of life into me and existence into me, and talks about how proud he is. And then he told me I was going to be the superintendent. I keep saying, hold on, Dr. Miguel, you can keep your job. I'm good with that. Speaking of all the help, I want to thank Reverend Bob Milan Jr., pastor, a Greater Faith Missionary Baptist Church, in their partnership with Paul Jones and Northeast Optimist Club for their in-kind donations of school supplies and book bags to our students. I would need to make sure that we understand that we need our community's help. Without our parents, and we can't eliminate parents from the equation, that we have to keep in mind that without them, there's no completeness of educating a whole child. Although Northwest is just a distant memory for now, the standards that was taught by Mr. Bruce, the teachers, the principals that worked in the building would never be forgotten, and we will continue to live with us forever. Just like the late Carl B. Bruce, a driven leader who believed that our children are the greatest asset, the staff at Carl B. Bruce Middle School will look to the future with confidence and optimism. On behalf of myself and the staff here at Carl B. Bruce, I want to present the flowers to Ms. Bruce and your family in honor and remembrance of the late Carl B. Bruce. We appreciate you. And we did practice safe touches, so you don't have to worry. So there was only one person touching that bag, and she's walking away. I need to go ahead and just say thank you, Dr. Mitchell. I requested your presence for you to be here today. If you didn't know, Dr. Mitchell had a lot to do with the facility, he and Dr. Lane, and the layout. I need to acknowledge my other board member who was able to show up, Dr. Stacy Yeager, and all the others who are around that are recording this. I am not the camera person, so I appreciate you all for being here today and doing those things. And Edwin, are you ready? Yes. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and do the ribbon cutting.